Thank you so much for joining me today. Would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself and what made you want to do the Strategic for Planning for Life course?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, my name's Stacy, and I found out about strategic planning for life through my employer, actually. Buckeye Innovation hosted a cohort for our team to do together, which I thought was really cool because I've sort of done a lot of reflections and introspective things over the years, but this was really the first opportunity I had to do something like this with a group, and it was really cool to do together with my teammates.
Yeah, I love that your whole group got to do that. I've, been meeting with so many your group and just such good people. And I like that you guys had that experience. You could expand those relationships with one another. What made this course different for you? I'm sure you guys have taken other courses through the company and probably by yourself. What was different about this course?
Yeah, and I think it was the group aspect of it that was most different for me. Most type of work I've done to try to get some personal development on my own has been largely a solitary exercise. So it was the facilitation and the group conversation that actually really made this more special. I think there's a lot of things I learned just from listening to other people in the group that hadn't occurred to me that really sparked some great ideas of my own. And I feel like we function better as a team now because we got a chance to get to know each other, open up to each other, and understand each other a little bit better. So I think it's helped us each. I can't speak for everyone. It's definitely helped me personally, but I think it's also helped us as a team to have done this together.
Was there a certain piece of the course that you felt like gave you the most energy or brought out the most unlocks for you?
Yeah, I think one of the exercises that I've come back to a couple of times is the drives and drains, and really just thinking about, like, let me just reflect a little bit on what were the moments, this week, this past month, or even back in my younger days or in my childhood, where I felt most alive and most fulfilled, and really what was going on during those times. Just to know what I need to add more of in my life. And then also looking at what are the things I walk away from feeling absolutely drained, and how can I avoid having those things in my life. So that's an exercise that I think I will continue to come back to often.
Yeah. And for me, it was really neat to see because some of my drives were also my drains if I gave too much of that. So it is really helpful to see like
Mhm.
that balance that you need, that you can have a drive. But if you're having a week where you're feeling off and you're like, oh, maybe I gave too much to that, you have to have that balance. So I
Sure,
really love
sure.
that one too. Did you notice that at all? That maybe some of your drives and drains were the same?
Yeah, it can be. And I think that's, I think some of my priorities on things like that have changed a little bit, post pandemic as well, and what energizes me. I always feel like I'm on that line between extroversion and introversion and how much time I want to spend with people and not. And I feel like that balance has shifted. So as I got sort of back into socializing once we could again, even though that does engage me and energize me, I realized that that's one of those things that I can maybe easily go too far with and need to retreat.
Yeah, I noticed that too. For me, for myself, which I love being able to go back to that
Mm-hmm.
and reevaluating that all the time. So now that you're done with the course, what have you been doing to keep that practice? And like you were just saying, are there other pieces that you're working on to keep the practice going? Because it's not just a 9-week course; it's a life
Right.
change.
Right.
What have you been doing to keep up with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I would say that's probably another thing that sets this course apart from other things I've tried in the past, is sort of the ongoing nature of it and the community around it. Um, I think for me, it's easy to work through something, get really excited about it, try it out for a while. And once I run into stumbling blocks, my inner critic can be kind of loud. And if I've ruined it, then it's just over and done. And it's hard for me to sort of course correct on that. So what I found through the strategic planning for life community is just sort of having these touch points, some accountability with my own coworkers. We will touch base on things and keep that conversation going. Love the monthly calls in the SPFL community. And sometimes it's even just a matter of seeing, like, oh, Krista posted something on LinkedIn, or they dropped a new podcast that I might want to listen to, and it just sort of, all those things keep things top of mind for me,
Yeah.
and that's helped. I think having that cadence and having that schedule of reminding myself that this is important really has helped me keep it top of mind. And I also think for me, and my inner critic, one of the things that's been different for me this time is that I've found a little bit more of a gentle kindness with myself, and that understanding that incremental progress is still progress, and it's okay if this isn't perfection. we're moving in a direction toward a goal. So I found that's been easier for me to say, hey, maybe this week didn't go as well as I thought I could, or maybe I didn't hit everything I wanted to do today, but that's okay because I'm still overall moving in the right direction, and it's just been easier for me to sort of make adjustments and get back on track a little bit faster.
Yeah, we had a podcast guest on the other week, Miranda from Street Parking, and I loved what she said. She said, just do more than nothing.
Yeah,
Some weeks you can get a million things done, and some weeks you can't. Use those little bits, and just doing more than nothing is enough. And
yeah,
like you were saying, I think it's very important to keep that reflection going. And I noticed too, when you're doing this program, the whole purpose is to have these unlocks and changes in your life to live more in alignment. But you have to realize that the changes are going to come. So sometimes you have to reevaluate those goals and those values and keep going back to those. When you started this program, did you notice changes right away? Was it kind of gradual, or did you notice right off the bat, or is it a little bit of a mixture of both of those?
I think it's a mixture. I definitely think there's some changes in the way I make decisions,
Mhm.
which is refreshing. I think I'm kind of susceptible to decision fatigue and second guessing myself and ruminating and all that. But the way we were able to distill things down to what are my intentions right now in my life sort of makes all those other decisions easier day to day. It's like, well, does this get me closer to those things or not? And it makes it easier to make those daily decisions, which is good. Like I said, I can't say I get it right all the time. Often I don't. And like learning, probably the biggest thing I took away was learning that that's okay, and to be kinder with myself on that and say, okay, let's try again today. Maybe yesterday didn't go so well. Let's try again today. And that's okay. And, just knowing that it's not selfish to put my own self-care first, that, my own wellness has to come first before I can do any of the other things. I think that's always been a little bit tough for me to have that kindness toward myself and know that that's actually better, because only when I'm at my best will I be able to give my best to others.
Yeah, exactly. What part of your life would you feel like has been most impacted? Like you're just saying, figuring out you need to give yourself that self care. Was there any other part where of your life, it could be your career or personal life that was really you felt most impacted by the program?
Yeah, I think the way, and my husband and I have talked about a lot of this too, the way that we spend our time, the way that we're planning things. There's a couple of things that we thought we would do sort of longer term that we're like, well, hey, why wait? Let's make plans and do them now, like while we can enjoy things, some travel, some backpacking and things like that. That we thought maybe we're a few years down the road. We've made some big plans for this year and are working toward them every day. So just sort of recognizing that we don't have to wait to live the life that we want. We can start today in some way, even if it's not the whole picture. There's something about our life today that is the life that we want to be living.
And I love that. For me, that came up when I did the deathbed activity.
Yeah,
Because I had this whole list of absurd lists, and it was like spend more time with the kids, do this, that. And after I got done and I do the deathbed, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this now. Like
yeah, yeah.
so it is. I love that you guys are like, no, we're gonna go do some of these things and take these adventures. And
Mhm.
I think I remember you saying on the community calls, you guys are spending more time out in nature, and that's kind of unlocked that you like doing that. And there's
Mhm.
enjoyment there, which I love. Like you found these creative ways to do activities that brought you joy. So
Right,
and then
right.
those are taking care of yourself. It's all kind of like intertwining then.
And it's helping relationships too. Our relationship together, because we are working together towards something.
Yes.
Nice. Even like I said with coworkers, the fact that we have sort of these common goals that we're working on and we can talk to you about, that helps relationships.
Yeah. I found it so much easier too. Like my husband, after I got done, he did a little bit of the course too because we were not, on the same page, but I didn't know what his values and goals were, and he didn't know what mine were.
Mhm.
So once we sat down and we shared, what we went through with the work, it unlocked for me like, oh, okay, he needs this because that's one of his values and goals. And it, like you said with your coworkers, that it helps you kind of realize where do you need to be giving and taking and the ways that you can help fulfill what they're trying to accomplish too. So that
Right.
was really helpful for me. So I'm glad to hear that you thought the same. It's just helps get everyone kind of on the same page and have the same understanding of what you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
Um, at work, were there any other big changes that you saw within your company with the employees and stuff after taking the course?
I don't know if I see big changes at a company level necessarily, but I can say personally, it's kind of the same thing we're talking about with other relationships, is just like knowing that we're in alignment. I'm glad that we were able to have this opportunity, and I'm grateful that the leadership at Buckeye saw this as a valuable program for us, because it really drives home our culture that they do care about us as people in all aspects of our life, not just what we bring to the workday. So I think that's very reassuring to me, to know that I'm working for an organization and a culture where the values are aligned with mine, and that we can be ourselves and show up as our full authentic selves. And I think that helps me, at least, and I think others too, is like, stay more engaged and focused in the work we do, because we know we're valued for the entirety of who we are, and not just what we bring to the workday.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Um, if someone came to you and they were thinking about doing the program and they were asking you what you thought about it, what would you tell them?
I would say that it's definitely, like many things, you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Mm.
And I'll be honest, there were some weeks throughout the program where I had a lot going on, and maybe I didn't spend as much time on the pre-work as I should have coming into that call. And I was sorry for that in hindsight. It's like I wished that I had had the time to give each and every week to fully prepare for that. Because the most impactful weeks were the ones where I'd had plenty of time to reflect on my own before the call, and then get some additional insight and ideas from the people on the call. So that might be a little cliche, that you're going to get out of it what you put into it, but definitely it's not like this magic wand that you're going to wave and everything about your life is better. But it's a great platform to start digging in and really getting to understand yourself and doing that work.
Yeah.
But I think people need to know that it does take effort and energy, and sometimes it's not pleasant. Sometimes there are things about your life maybe you'd rather not dig into, because it really kind of takes away, for me too, it sort of takes away the opportunity to point anywhere else. It's like, everything about my life really does come down to me and what I choose to do day to day, which is powerful and terrifying at the same time. It's like, hey, I have the power to change things in my life, but also I'm ultimately the one with that responsibility. So that's, be ready for that.
Yeah.
You're ripping a Band-Aid off in some ways, right? There's nowhere to
Yeah. Did
hide.
you find it hard to do that digging? Because, I've, heard, and it was same with me. You think you know yourself so well, and then you get into work, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, what are my goals? What is my mission statement? What do I think about these things? And I really had to dig, and I was kind of shocked how much I really had to sometimes put that thought into it.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, I think for me, I've always been a little bit of a people pleaser too. I think it's pretty common. I think we want to keep the peace and go along with other people want. So I think a lot of times in my life there have been things that I said I wanted when really I'm just like, because it's what I'm supposed to want, what I'm supposed to do. So kind of stripping away those layers of pretense that, like, is that really what I want, or is that what I was told I should want for my life? Maybe there's a difference there. So that was a little challenging sometimes, to strip away things maybe that had been ingrained in me for years that I thought I wanted, that when you really come down to it, you're questioning, but why? Like, what was the origin of wanting that? And I did find in some cases it was like, oh, because that's what I was supposed to have wanted, right?
And you thought that's what you wanted, and then it's the main one on your drain list.
Exactly. Like,
What am I doing?
when I evaluate this versus that and think down the line, I'm like, maybe that's not as important as I thought it was. And so, sort of letting go of some of those things that I was told I should want for my life, sometimes is challenging too.
Yeah, and that's why I love having this book and having it out there, and then you can go back and actually keep looking back and seeing these things that you actually put. Because, like Krista always says, we're not telling you what to put down. That's coming from you. So it's just having you work through those, and it really is crazy, those unlocks that you get where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, or I need more of this. And I love that.
There's some consistencies too, though. I did find some old notes from some reflections that I had done, years ago, reading some books and working through some programs, and there were some common threads too. So then I kind of look, okay, what are the common threads anytime I've tried to do work like this? Maybe those need to bubble to the top as the most important things.
What was there a part of the course that was maybe most challenging for you?
I think just finding clarity on narrowing things down, and even coming into the big headlines at the end of the year, and it's like, write down 3 to 7 things. And of course, I'm like, okay, I got to narrow my list down to 7 things. And then I feel like I almost cheated, like, well, I can lump these 5 things together into a broad category, and these 3 things fit in a cat, and I could kind of lump everything on my list instead of eliminating things off of my list.
Yeah.
It's like you start with this audacious, like, brainstorming list of, what's everything you want. And I found narrowing the focus of that down. But I think it's helpful to know that, like, those headlines, like, sort of can and should change over the year.
Yeah.
Because I look at them now, I'm like, okay, I can't focus on 7 things at once or 7 categories of things at once. And maybe I should have picked 3 or 4 to actually focus on this year. But that's hard for me to say that these other things are less important, because I want everything to be important.
Yeah. And that's a challenge,
Yeah.
especially if you are people pleasing.
Yeah.
Like I have to take up lists like, is that going to add value for me, or am I doing that for other people? And sometimes it's still like you want to do these things for others, but you need to realize, okay, well, it's going to drain me to the point where I'm not going to be helpful and valuable, that I need to let that go.
Yeah. But I found myself broadening instead of narrowing down to specific focus, found myself broadening these categories so that more pieces could fit into them. It's not necessarily the best approach.
At least you're acknowledging that. And
Yeah. Hey, you asked what the hard part was.
yes, and you know what it is, and it is hard, and it's there's some things that I knew I wanted, and I wanted to see those happen, and then when they were happening, that was still hard because I needed to retrain my brain that these things
Mhm.
are, like you said, giving myself time and space. I was still feeling guilty for that, and I needed to figure out how to do that without feeling that I shouldn't be doing that for myself, or you know, adding in things that I said I wanted, like more time with my family during work, and like balancing that. It was a struggle, and I had to retrain but myself. But it's like, you've been doing these, um, doing something a certain way your whole life. It's going to take a little while, and it's going to be a
Right,
process, and you're going to have
right.
to keep doing it over and over until it becomes more of a habit for yourself. And that's why getting the book back out and going through it, and keeping up with that work and reflecting on that is so important.
Mhm.
Um, is there anything we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about the course? Anything that helped you do or unlocked for you?
Um, I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like I'm a little all over the place today. Scatterbrained today, honestly.
The Monday.
I know I should have taken some notes the other day. I feel like I had thoughts in my head the other day, and I should have written some things down. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like we probably hit on most of the
Okay.
most important highlights. I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I love getting the feedback. And I agree with you. I love getting to connect with the group after the course,
Yeah,
keep everybody moving and seeing how everything's going. So I always enjoy having you on the community calls and getting to, reach out to you guys that way.
I've
So
been bummed. I was like out of town for the last couple of them, but I think I'm around for the next one. I hope so. Hopefully, I can join for the next one. But yeah, it's been good. I guess overall, if I had to sort of look at the impact of this in my life, I definitely feel like I've have more joy in my daily life and more like hopefulness about the future,
good.
and less anxiety. I think I'm spending a lot of time. I really took to heart something Phil said about like depression is dwelling in the past, and anxiety is dwelling in the future. But what can you do right now today to be living the life you want? And I think I try to bring that to mind anytime I start to feel a little anxious or depressed. Like, okay, what can I do right now to find joy in this moment? And even if it's a small thing, just go for a walk for 10 minutes or whatever. Those small things really do have a big ripple effect. And I find that, I feel better overall than I feel like I've felt in years, which is really powerful.
And it is
Hopeful,
10 minutes
optimistic.
or whatever you need to do
Yeah.
to fill your cup back up. It is so crazy the ripple effect it makes throughout your whole day, then your week,
Yeah.
and then your life. It's a very powerful thing once you
Mm-hmm.
realize that.
Mm-hmm. I think I always have struggled a little bit to have this thought that if I couldn't do enough of something, it wasn't worth doing at all, right?
Yeah.
If I don't have time to go walk 5 miles, it's not worth it to go walk at all. If I don't have time for a 50-mile bike ride, it's not even worth getting out. And it's
Yeah.
not true. I might not have time to read a book, but can I read a chapter or can I read 3 pages? And I always struggled to see the value in just like tiny little moments, but I think I'm really learning how those tiny little moments do add up. And that is, like you said before, it's better than zero.
Do more
So
than nothing.
if I
That's
did
cute.
more
I
than
love
nothing
that.
today, I did okay. And I've really learned to find joy in that. And it's just given me a much brighter outlook and positivity and optimism about life in general.
Good. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining
You're
me, and I can't wait to
welcome.
see you on our next call.
It was great to chat with you. Thanks so much.